some type of way, or Viper, or just any sort of you have some context of like, okay, here's what a contract looks like. What a lot of people don't have, what's that next step? When I want to actually deploy something that's going to secure, hopefully, billions of dollars, what is that process? And that's where I find a lot of people botch it, for lack of a better word. When we do this, leave it long. So please ask what if there's anything now you have to do it as opposed to and then you go, oh wait, what am I supposed to do? What is the step look like for going to unveil that? So for those of you who don't know, here, security researcher, educator, you can see some of my socials up there, QR codes, and I live and breathe smart communication. I absolutely love everything, especially love. So. Now, here's the scenario that I'm going to speak to you. Your name is Terry the Tackle. You have big dreams. They snapshot of DeFi Llama, DeFi. You want to get up on that leaderboard. You want to have the largest TVL protocol that's ever existed. And in doing so, bring millions and thousands of people, billions of people to Web3, to this better ecosystem. It's more financially accountable. It's more fair. It's better ecosystem. These are your big dreams. The question is, how do you get it? What is the process from idea, deployment, of getting it? Now, we're not going to go over great one themselves, nothing that so, how do we get Terry the Tackle top of the board in the most effective, efficient manner? How do we do that? Let's go over that. Well, we're going to be going over 5 steps for Terry the Tackle to become the next 8.5, the next insert whatever you thought we're calling it here. And I have a question mark because ask what you all think the next steps are after we go on. And to show where some of this can be from. And I'm going to spend a little extra time on that because these are additional spots that are missing in. So if you would like to follow along with us, here is the code base that we're going to be working with. For those of you who have taken most recent 27-hour study course, YouTube channel, this is going to be a very familiar code base. This is a stablecoin code base. We found it by stablecoin free. I already have this cloned here, and we saw that before. So that's the code base that we're going to be working with. Moving on. So, so first step is plan to design. So that's step 1. Guys, the first step is the plan to design. Obviously, we're not going to spend a lot of time here because this is what we're going to add. Hey, what are some things that are cool? What are some things that need? What are some things that we are not doing a very good job of creating? This is where you design all your stuff, research all your stuff, etc. For me, what I like to do is I like to make a giant chart saying, hey, this is the stablecoin maybe. I like to make a giant movie, work on it, and then slowly iterate more correct thoughts. Here are the fun, here are the goals that I like to struggle. Here's what I would like to do. So we're going to kind of skip past this step. We're going to say, here's the TLDR of the stablecoin. Users can deposit assets in the protocol. They can mint a $1 asset so long as they have deposited at least double the value of the collateral. And they can liquidate the collateral this is pretty similar to like the make DAO, DAO protocol. Log that. Take simple points and use it to leverage up your exposure to different assets. This is one of the this is going to be our plan. We got there. Yeah. All right. So now we have, let's say we have our design. We got amazing idea. Outstanding stable plan. Just that, like, everyone's going on for money. What do you do next? Well, this is what I love the question. What do you think next? This is where I'm going to point to you guys. What do you think? Yes. What? Code. Anybody else? Right.
Chain selection.
Chain selection. Great. What else? What other ideas do we have? Code it, chain selection. Market research. Great. Code it, chain selection, market research. All right, cool. Those were all kind of correct, actually. So I have here develop and test, and obviously this is like, there's no one right answer. Because there's right. Develop and test, market research. That's going to be a part of your development. Coding, absolutely. Selecting your chain, absolutely. These are all part of this develop and test process, right? And this is what most of us as coders are pretty familiar with, right? This is when we sit down in these stick, spark-branded chairs and hack away. Obviously, we want to use some of the most modern tools to do this. Something like Foundry, Market Running, A-Works, probably recently shut down. We want to use some fantastic tools to build this program. So, and this is where we are going to flip over to our code base here. I'm going to try to click on this screen. And so I have already done a lot of coding. We call it the 27-hour course. You will have built this scaling point with us. We're doing a very brief walkthrough of what our code looks like here. We have this very minimal decentralized stablecoin code base here. This is the entire code base. All it does is burn coins and mint coins. And we have it's going to be owned by this DSC engine. And this engine is going to be the contract that actually controls when something is burned and when something is minted. Scroll down. We've got some pretty basic, we've got some functions like deposit collateral. This is going to be our function where this is going to be our function where we can put money into this. Obviously, we can see we have this S collateral deposited and mapping, which looks like it's okay. It's mapping accounts and a ERC20 token address with some type of amount. We emit an event, and then we do a transfer from function call on that ERC20. And then if we did it right, we emit if we did it. We have, obviously, if we deposit collateral, we're going to want to be able to redeem collateral, which does the first process. And then one of the most important functions is going to be this mint DSC, where you can mint DSC when you have this function here where if no factor is broken. This is where we basically then check to see, okay, having deposited enough value to mint the stablecoin, and then to mint the stablecoin, right? And a whole bunch of other code and stuff here. If you want to, you're more interested in how to build this, like I said, we have a YouTube video and channel that kind of walks through this. But great, we did it. You're hacking away. Did this hackathon. You're like, oh my gosh, I made a super sick stablecoin. Great job. Maybe you even went super hard mode and you wrote some amazing tests. You can write some fuzz tests, some mocks, some unit tests. You go super overboard, you go crazy testing. Awesome. You got all that. So now the question is, what's next? What do we think next in our development life cycle of this is? And what is it? Fundraising. Say it again? Fundraising. Okay, we have VC in the back. Great. What else? What else do we think?
Debt
We have
creation,
audit. We have audit. What else?
social media.
We have another big C. We have social media. What else?
Way to go.
I'm just kidding. What else? Deploy the code. Somebody puts on the edge.
Testnet.
That's it. Okay. Right. What else? White Club. What else? These are all great ideas. I'm joking about okay, cool. So we have some great ideas here. Develop and test, we kind of did that. But really, I'm lumping these two into the next phase. Post-deployment planning and security review. So a lot of people said, hey, audit, same thing, security review. Nobody said, hey, what's your post-deployment plan? Nobody said that, right? The reason nobody said that is because nobody thinks about that. This is something that we are doing a very poor job in our ecosystem. And even before the audit stuff, I kind of, we talked about, hey, we did some stuff, we did some tests. Nobody said, hey, like, are we ready to go to audit, right? Oftentimes protocol is saying, okay, did my code, I wrote some tests, let's go to the next step. And a lot of protocols don't even know when they're ready to go to an audit. Sometimes they will go to an audit and they'll spend, a ton of money and they'll get way overcharged because there's a lot of simple things that they missed. Right? There's a lot of just security culture bits that they should have included. And both of these are pieces of that security culture, and that's what we're going to do over here. So one of the questions that you should always ask yourself in your life cycle of deploying your multi-million-dollar protocol, are you ready to move to the next stage? We should walk through the code base. A lot of people say, hey, I get an audit right now and then ship it. Please don't do that, Terry. You should be ashamed. Do not ship until you know you're ready to go audit. Do not get an audit until you're ready to go audit. And there are two pieces of content that I usually point people to that is the most basic assumption of, hey, like whether or not you're ready to go to audit. And these are the rec test by TacoBytes and the basic simple security check. These are two resources before you go to audit. You should go 100% read, check out, and this will give you like the information of, hey, like whether or not you're secure. The rec test is one of the most important pieces of information here, and it's just a list of 12 questions. And can you answer these 12 questions in a intelligent way? Is the answer yes, we're ready to go to audit or no? The first one here is you have all the actions, roles, and documents. This is put a check mark. Assume the repeat and all that stuff. However, there's a whole bunch of stuff you cannot have in this code base, right? Keep documentation while the external services contracts are relying on. The answer is absolutely not, right? We're talking about building a stablecoin, talking about building collateral. Every single ERC-20, every single possible piece of collateral is going to be an external contract. And obviously, in Web3, this is the most adversarial environment out there. Even some of those coins that we want to use as collateral can be adversarial, right? We have in our code base here, we're doing these transfer protocols, right? And we have this full success. What if, remember, these are just external contracts. What if this transfer function says, okay, steal all the money or something like that, right? We're dealing with external contracts, even when we're dealing with just stablecoin. So you need to keep documentation of all that. In the stablecoin, we genuinely, so you need the documentation saying, here are the price suite that we're working with. If you're pick the wrong price suite at, you everything documented before you can even go to audit. Because when you do go to audit, guess what they're going to ask you? Hey, are you sure these are the correct price bits? What external services they work? What stablecoin? What collateral bits do you want? Every single one of those things they're going to ask you, and you're going to spend a lot of time wasted. You're going to waste a lot of time. You have a written and tested incident response plan. This is something critically undervalued. And let me pull up. I'm actually going to skip slides. Here is a snapshot of some of the hacks that happened this year. These are some of the largest hacks that happened this year. And this is the compromise, detection, and triage timeline of these hacks. This is from a fantastic security talk. And you can see for a lot of these, like a lot of these, the triage was fixed hours later after the hack happened, right? Sometimes obviously it's like, oh, well, the hack happened late. But some of these, didn't even get notified of an attack hours later until after it happened. There are examples in the past year of a protocol losing $millions and they didn't even notice it until weeks later, right? Which is a ridiculous thing. But the reason that oftentimes happens, the reason that it's so slow to respond to something attacks is because having an incident response plan isn't even likely. Hey, I just got shit. I got shit. Well, if you want to ship securely, you got to have an incident response plan. And I'm going to walk through this whole list. Yes, I am. Thankfully, so that it kind of sticks here, right? I want this to stick. Okay. Do you document the best ways to attack your system? When you go to a security review or when you go to an auditor, you should say, hey, here's my system. Here's where I think it's not safe. I know that sounds ridiculous because we're kind of in the system where we make a mistake. A lot of bad things happen. You need to have the humility to say, here's where I think my code is wrong. Here's where I would like them to specifically attack it and make their job a lot easier. To perform identity verification and background checks on all employees. This is something, if you're working with a protocol where it's like you're doing a 5 or 9 mistake or something, and 6 of them have malicious intent, it's true. You need to know who exactly is working with this. If you're working with an anonymous, for example, maybe you ask the docs stuff to you, or maybe you put a lot more people in that multi-sig so that they don't run. You've seen that happen many times too. Hey, that's my buddy, that's my bro. Have you ever met him? Well, no. You know what they look like? Well, no. Okay, red flags. You have a team member with security defined in their role. You've seen a lot of success with this. On your team, when you go to, hey, we're going to deploy soon, pick somebody, you go, okay, you are now responsible for making sure we're secure. Why? Because now they have ownership of all of this, right? It makes it a lot easier to say, you're responsible for all this. You require hardware keys for production systems, the key nodes, the key nodes system require humans. You define the key invariants for your system and test them on every commit. Key invariants, what pieces of your protocol, what properties of your protocol should never ever be broken. This should be 100% something that every single protocol has. And ideally, you have a big fuzzing or a variant test system with this key invariant in mind. Again, if you want to learn more about that, we've got a video right here. And in that 27-hour course, use the best automated tools to discover security issues in your code. One of the tools that I absolutely love is this tool called Slither. Okay, we're going to run it now. Because there's a ton of open source tools out there that can make your life a lot better. You can make it more secure. So there's a tool called this static analysis. Basically just reads all your code and looks for bugs. And you're going to see, you might be thinking, oh, well, that's broken. Everyone makes mistakes, guaranteed. There's no one who's ever going to write perfect code. We have this man here. We're going to run it, and we're going to see how easily it's able to find a ton of bugs. So this is a Pythonic tool created by the TacoBytes team, and it has just a list of, I don't know how many detectors, a lot of detectors. And it's going to read our code base and it's going to look for anything. It's going to look for anything you can find from called static analysis. It's going to say, hey, are there any redirections in tags? Are you using the correct versions of splitting? Are you doing any negative? Are you doing any unsafe practices that have been seen in the past? And a tool like this is something that everyone should be running on their code base. Before you go to audit, so you can fix it before you go to audit. Because after you go to audit, you're going to have to. And we can see some of the outputs up here. Yellow means vulnerable. Red means big issue. Yellow or green means it might be okay. And we can see they're taking a ton of stuff. It's outputting just by running on this code base, right? Scroll to the top, we can actually read what it's saying. It's saying performs multiplication on the result of division, right? We know solidity. We know that solidity doesn't work super great, but decimals, also precision is really important. So if we divide something, we can lose a lot of precision. So it's saying, hey, you might be losing it 100%, right? It's something as easily as that now. The problem. It's telling us, hey, you have a potential reentrancy vulnerability. You should probably go fix that. That's one of the most common attacks that happens across our industry. We'll talk more about that on my main talk. I'm going to talk more about that on my main talk. So you absolutely want to be running the best. In this code base, we're using Foundry, which has this thing called fuzz tests and variant tests as well. These are tests that help us to these allow us to write a test that says, hey, what's our key invariant of the system? Our key invariant of the standpoint system is that the collateral west and collateral right Bitcoin should always be greater than or equal to the total supply. And we can write this test that will basically try a ton of different random inputs and outputs on our code base, try to break this invariant. Is there a case where the amount of collateral the system has is less than the amount of standpoint input, right? So we want to have all these super awesome tests and tools to make the code base secure. Few undergo external audits. Obviously, this one is, we don't have to answer this yet, but we get to that. And then have you considered to mitigate avenues using your system? So again, what are the attack vectors? So before you launch, 100% walk through this at the very least. Before you go to audit, walk through this. And you need to have a definitive answer to every single one of these before you go to audit, and especially before you launch. Another tool that I like to point to is this audit readiness checklist. Again, there's a link, Basin XYZ audit readiness checklist on their GitHub. I'm not going to go through this one, but there's a little bit of redundancy here, but it's the same idea. You really want to go through these checklists before you go to audit so that you can know that code base is at least at a certain level of quality there. And additionally, this will protect you because if you go to an auditor and then they do a terrible security review, you'll at least have a higher level of assurance that it's better than that. So even if they botch it, you can say. So good job, Terry, for thinking ahead. You're doing great. Next, post-deployment planning. So this is something, again, we as an industry are not doing a very good job thinking about. So before you launch your protocol, you need to have an idea of, okay, what happens if you get that, right? And I know that question can be a little bit weird because it's like, oh, we're a decentralized community. It doesn't really matter. It's like the community, it doesn't matter. The thing is, if you're going to launch a protocol and you're going to be a large investor in that protocol should have an incident response, right? So maybe it's not you, maybe it's people who are planning on anything, but some type of post-deployment planning is 100% needed. So bug bounties are incredibly popular. They're great ways to hack bugs that are in the code base. Something like Unify is a great platform to do that. Just doing a disaster recovery drill is actually something all of modern tech does, but for some reason, Web3, we decided we're not going to do. I worked at a $30 billion hedge fund, and every year you do a couple of drills where you say, okay, what happens if everything goes down? And you literally turn everything off and you do a drill. How do you get everything back up? How do you fix it? Something, who here has done a DR drill on a DeFi protocol? One person? Did you really? Hell yeah. Excellent. Anybody else? One person. Two people. Great, right? That's the answer right there. Why do we not know, like, when that situation happens, what's going to happen is you're going to panic. Your hands are going to get really sweaty. You're going to have a hard time pressing your keys. It's a lot easier to get through the process. Say, okay, here's the checklist that I need to do. Here's exactly what I need to look for. And here's how we're going to defend ourselves. Doing these drills is incredibly helpful. And in monitoring the final one that we're also doing the work on, we should be aware of these hacks before they happen. So something that was fantastic with the ear hack is 17 minutes before something happened was they started seeing weird on-chain activity that they had monitoring place, right? And at least having that 17 minutes is 17 more minutes they have to defend against that, right? A lot of these hackers, oddly enough, make mistakes, right? Maybe they deploy a contract that they're planning on using the packet protocol, and they like botch it up a little bit, and there's like an hour-long window for that transaction to go through. Maybe somebody starts sending reverted flash loans every minute on your protocol. Being aware of that is a great opportunity for you to fix some vulnerability. Having this monitoring will just create a barrier to make your protocol much harder to attack. So OpenZeppelin has a tool called OpenZeppelin Defender, Custom Spotter has a great monitoring tool. There's a ton of monitoring tools that can help you monitor your protocol, and then obviously roll your own, build your own monitoring tool. Look for, again, this is where this rec test is great, because if you have a great list of where a protocol might be safe, perfect, that's what you're going to monitor for. Cool. Next, now that we have all that, only now it makes sense to go to a smart contract audit or a security review, which I have. There's a ton of different options that you have. Go to independent auditor, you can go to a firm, you can do a competitive one, you can do something hybrid, Cycling and Prodox, those are platforms that I work on. And the more, the idea behind these is that you're going to work with a security expert who's going to give you feedback on your code base. First off, they're going to look through your code base, they're going to say, here are the bugs you should do, here's how you should fix it. But additionally, they're going to give you feedback on how to make your code more defensive, how to make your code better in the future. How do you not get hit by those bugs again? And each system has different trade-offs. That's, we go over that another talk. But finally, about these is, these smart contract security reviews are not a guarantee of bug. And that's the reason why having this post-deployment planning is so important. There's never going to be a guarantee of bug. There's things like formal verification and buzzing and all this great stuff. That is not a guarantee of bug. One might not even be enough, but you might want to do multiple layers. You might want to attack multiple areas. Security isn't a one-time stop. It's a journey. And finally, if you do all these steps, obviously the last step is going to be deploy, monitor, and maintain. And Terry the Tadpole finally evolved into frog, because Terry the Tadpole has $1 billion protocol, and now it's frog. I put this slide in the wrong area, sorry. Smart contract security review process is going to be this really in a nutshell. The auditor or security researcher, they're going to get context of what the code base is supposed to do. It goes back to that rec test. If you have everything documented, everything laid out, that's the easiest part. Then they're going to go line by line with the code. And yeah, 200 lines of code might take 1 to 5 days to review, depending on how. So we have about half an hour left, and I didn't stop enough for questions. Are there any questions so far about anything that we've done? Anything that doesn't make sense? Anything that you're like, oh, I'm nervous about doing this in production? Yes.
So you mentioned that there's static analysis tools. Is
Yes.
there any equivalent for dynamic analysis, or is that kind of like form of verification and post testing, things like that?
Yes, great question. The question was, you mentioned static analysis. Are there any different tools for dynamic analysis? Yes, great question. So static analysis, again, is the process of just reading the code, not executing the code, and looking for bugs. So it's static because you're not actually, your code isn't being executed. Dynamic analysis, on the other hand, is your code is doing something, right? It's being executed. The simplest form of dynamic analysis is actually unit tests, right? In a test, code is being executed, your code is running. That's a form of dynamic analysis. But yes, there are tools like formal verification, like Sephora, Mithril, or even like the Solidity SAT checker, which do that. And dynamic allocation tools can be really, really helpful. There's some disagreement on how helpful. So some people say like a sufficiently built buzzer is actually just so buzzer is another dynamic analysis tool. Formal verification is a tool where it'll prove exactly one property versus so formal verification actually is phenomenal if you're doing it, especially on an heavy function. You say, hey, this function needs to always do X. It's doing all this math. Let's prove it always holds its property, and it's great for that. It can be a little bit tricky if you have very complex properties where it's going to take like a supercomputer 100 years to compute the answer. That's what kind of part. But yes, there are a lot of tools for that. I'll link to we go over the Solidity as a key checker. The Solidity compiler actually comes with a formal verification baked into it, which is really sick. Highly recommend everyone try that out. Great question. Any other questions? There are no? Yes.
It's a bit of a stupid question that where do you personally keep track of those contracts and those addresses to interact with your contract?
So the question was, where do you keep track of all the contracts?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So when you're building your protocol, exactly the right test. If you're saying I want to interact with every single ERC20 possible, you should have that documented somewhere. It doesn't really matter where. Just have a section that says external contracts. All right. ERC, all the ERC20s, here are the price fields I'm interacting. Just every single external system. The reason why having that document is so important is, again, this is an adversarial environment. You don't know who you're interacting with, what you're interacting with. Assume malicious intent. You need to have all that done. Good question. Any other question? Did that answer it or not quite?
And then it's like literally which platform that you use for those type of information. And do
What platform do I use?
so do you do just like
Giant docs page. So either a giant readme, ideally your protocol has some type of formal documentation, and that's what we do. And then often in security reviews, the report will actually say, all right, here's all the external actors, and here are the internal actors, and here's the great question. Yes.
So I asked this question to someone else before, but since you're also making debugging tools, who do you have out of your debugging tools?
So this is actually a really interesting question. So the question is, who do you have debugging, or excuse me, who do you have who's an automated debugging tool? So who's like doing the review on the debugging tools in the libraries for tooling service? So this is actually really important. So this is if one of your tools that you're using gets hacked, it's known as like a supply chain attack, where like maybe you installed a bad version of Foundry or a bad version of Hardhat or like a malicious version of Python, and you're running tests and it's like, hey, everything's good, but it's secretly it inputted some address to your it inputted some address in your code to like siphon off on or something like that. So there's a lot of researchers out there who do security reviews on those type of tools. The thing that's kind of really nice about Solidity and the EVM is we don't really when it comes to when it comes to actually looking at the code, you don't need to necessarily do an audit on the debugging tools because you're looking at the code and that's exactly what's going to be deployed on chain. Right? The debugger isn't going to be deployed with you. So as long as what the code that you're going to be deploying is good, that's good. But there are a lot of firms like out there doing products like that, like those who, like compilers, for example, are great ones. Like who's auditing Slitty, who's auditing Viper. So that unfortunately resulted in attack incident where not enough eyes were looking at Viper, and more firms are getting involved in auditing the actual stuff. So good question. Any other questions? Yes. This looks good.
Yeah, you mentioned incident response. So incident response needs monitoring on-chain activity data. Could you comment on what services you recommend, or like, would you recommend that to do their own monitoring?
Yeah, so the question was, what do we recommend? Like, what do we recommend products use? Should they roll their own? Should they use something else? I'm kind of in above the camp that at the moment most protocols are unique enough that I think rolling your own is usually one of the best ways to do it, one of the quickest ways, the easiest ways, one of the cheapest ways. That doesn't work for all protocols. So oftentimes I'll point people to something like Forta, which is like a decentralized bot monitoring network. I'll point people to opens up in Defender. I'll point people to SSD Spotter. There's a lot of tools that I like. There's no one tool that I think is the best. For me, my order of operations, if you will, is roll your own and then look at some of the other ones. It really depends on your needs. And I think this is the big reason why a lot of people kind of skip over it, because it's not so easy just to be like, hey, use this, and then you're good. It's really like, okay, well, what does your protocol need? What does it do? How do we have a confidence with that? So, good question. Other question. I love these, by the way. Yes.
How to decide if I should protocol? How to decide how to change from being on CD power?
Say it again.
How do you decide how the ownership of your protocol will change? So that you can continue developing and fixing this initially. But how do you make that long-term plan from CD power to a current state?
So correct me if I'm wrong. So the question is, how do you basically plan to transition from a more centralized protocol to a decentralized? Yeah, good question. So actually, I usually say protocols starting off as kind of like, I call them centralized training wheels, is actually usually a good call, right? It's really hard to out the gate like, hey, we're decentralized. Some protocols have done really well, something like Aave, right? So Aave had Aave transition down. They basically had an only owner, a couple of only owner contracts, and then you basically just transfer ownership to the DAO, right? So it's just who owns the contract, right? Is it going to be an EOA? Is it going to be multi-sig, or is it going to be, a DAO? It's kind of easy to say. Basically, like a set of smart contracts governed by some philosophy, governed by some set of functions, right? So Aave is works with like ERC20 token holder voting. But the question is like having a plan for that. And the answer is it kind of depends. Right? I think it's great to have that plan from the get-go, especially because you can then market, hey, like, it's owned by multi-sig right now. Obviously, it's really easy to switch to being only owned by the DAO. I think the answer though is it depends, right? Once you get enough people in the DAO, I think it's really important. What that enough is depends. So I don't have any perfect answer. It depends. Any other questions? Yes.
I have two questions.
Yes.
First, what do you think about test-driven development in smart contract environment?
I like it.
Do you think it helps?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good. I do it a lot.
Next. Second question is, what do you think about kill switch for implementing a smart contract? Do you think this is feasible? That put a Boolean and doing it very fast? I don't know how would you implement that.
Yeah, this is a great question. So the question is, what do you think of like a kill switch or like a pausable function? So there's a lot of debate on this, on if it's good or not, right? Obviously, if you add a kill switch, you add a pausable function. You're adding some level of centrality. For a lot of systems, it's unfortunately necessary. we've seen protocols get hacked. They don't have a kill switch. They patch and fix, and then they have to wait like a mandatory 7 days for the governance process to fix it. That's really tough. On the other hand, if you elect some emergency chancellor, automatically pause a contract, kill a contract, that can save a lot of liquidity, that can save a lot of usage funds. But at the same time, what happens if that power is used? So, unfortunately, my answer here is again, it depends. I would have this is the correct option, this is the incorrect option. It's a trade-off. If you want to add a kill switch, you're adding a level of centrality, unless you figure out a way to add like a DAO loaded kill switch. To me, that seems like crazy. You need to move very quickly. But yeah, like you can add a DAO loaded kill switch. You can add a kill switch. Obviously, you're introducing a level of centrality, or you can leave it off, leave the governance. Now you kind of have that attack vector open, but you're keeping the decentralized nature of the protocol. So I think the answer is it depends on the protocol. But we have seen most modern day protocols have some type of emergency powers. That is the current trend. That there is some type of pause, there is some type of kill switch. Good question. These are great, by the way. That's exactly what I was looking for. Any other questions?
So, saying that that's the current industry trend, what kind of regulatory effects do you think that might have on especially smaller projects?
So this is where I'm definitely not an expert on regulatory stuff. I'm more of an expert on smart contracts. I can tell you just from what I've seen, right? So we saw an issue with wasn't Baker, it was like Oasis, where I think it was the UK government like demanded that they upgrade a protocol. Okay, I'm getting that concept. Okay. They demanded like a protocol upgrade to basically return stolen funds. And so that's like an example of like regulation stepping in and be like, oh, cool, I found out where you're centralized. Boom, I'm now going to force you to do something, otherwise you go to jail. So that's kind of the answer. So that almost answers this question as well. If you're going to add these centralized pieces, well, keep in mind, if you're going to play centralized games, you're going to win centralized prizes. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, love this. Even better. So actually, before we keep going, I do want to just point out to this last one. So this is a sneak peek of an upcoming security course that I'm working on right now. This is a puppy raffle smart contract. So this is a very minimal smart contract. It's based off of like a raffle, where you can raffle to win puppy NFTs. And yeah, a sneak peek of an upcoming security and auditing mega course. If you want to try to take a crack at this code base right now or in the future, feel free to do so. There are several bugs in here. Some of them obvious, some of them not. If you can find all the bugs, sick. Really cool. So yeah, sneak peek of the upcoming code base. How many bugs can you find? So, and since we have 15 minutes left, if anyone wants to look for bugs, we can take 2 minutes at the end and see how you all did. Those of you who are interested in the challenge, but I thought more people would have laptops. That's also why I thought of this. Yeah. Yes. Next question.
How do you see AI? Oh, sorry.
Where is it? Yeah.
Okay, so my question is regarding post deployment, how you can run disaster recovery on a protocol fully run by DAO.
Say it again.
How we can try out our disaster recovery plan on a protocol fully run by DAO.
How do you do a disaster recovery
Yes.
for a DAO?
Yes, if we don't have any ownership, any action to make, should we engage the community, get some vote, because it can be very harmful for our product. We also like this.
Yep. Great question. So the DAO should figure out a disaster recovery plan, right? Is it going to, maybe it's electing somebody to be responsible for DR. Maybe it's electing somebody to be responsible for incident response. We see a lot of the larger DAOs and a lot of DeFi protocols they have like a team who is basically paying grants from the DAO to keep improving the protocol, keep the protocol secure. To do something like that, you give out a grant to the team to maybe sign a DR plan. If you want to, you could also just be like, all right, our DR plan is just like just wing it. So as a DAO, as a collective, vote on, hey, here's what our DR plan is going to be. Here are the actors who are responsible. So at the end of the day, somebody has to step in and do DR. So if you can find a way, if your DR plan is we as a collective are going to be responsible for doing these emergency actions, good luck. But yeah, I think most DAOs nowadays they give out grants to some team to be responsible for that. Good question.
Yeah, I would love to know, like, case, yeah, so how can you monitor their working?
Yeah, so it's
How can you like limit this kind of case?
so it's a good question. So we can talk about like something like
Yeah.
so it's that one's really tough, and we've seen a couple of attacks this year, like the Viper ones, like the boiler, I don't know, where most of the right things were done, and then they still get hacked, and that's kind of a hard right. For some of the Viper stuff, the answer is okay. There's more eyeballs, right? There needs to be a certain number of depths on the code base, especially file or infrastructure code. Right? Like the gentleman over here asked a question, hey, who's automating the tools, right? We have not been spending enough time automating the tools, looking at the monitoring bit actually, to me, was an example where it did kind of work. There were a couple of white hats that did front run some of these attacks, which was great to see. Right? So my answer there is that one's kind of tough. That one's really tough because at some point, sure you could add like more box functionality, right? But again, you need to straight up. You're gonna add centrality. To me, the answer there is really like okay, having more oversight of some infrastructure tools is really important. Yeah, I mean those are hard workers. And the remediation of those is still ongoing. For those who do want to audit the environmental code base, they box. Now it's great to do exactly that, to give more oversight. Like, okay, how do we make sure enough eyes are looking at this critical infrastructure? So, yeah, tough one to answer. Great question. Any other questions? Thanks.
How do you feel that AI is playing into code auditing these days? It's a contentious subject. Do you still believe that it's building out more?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's a contentious subject. I actually think it's great. So at the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to scale Web3. We want to scale security. So Vito just had a talk recently. $77 billion was stolen from DeFi or Web3, total value, right? Just this year, we're already over the $1 billion. Last year, we were over the $3 billion, right? If we can have a tool that's going to reduce that number, let's get it, right? Like, I don't care what it is. If it's going to make Web3 safer, it's going to make Web3 more approachable, we should have it, right? There are some people arguing, hey, like, oh, like, I want to replace jobs or anything like that. I think, to be honest, I don't know if you've used any of these tools. They have a long way to go. They are not very good. I've seen some examples where someone will be like, oh yeah, it was audited by ChatGPT, and then I have this. Please don't do that. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. They're great to aid security research. They can be really, really helpful in aiding security research, understanding something. And I think for the foreseeable future, that's how it will be. I think it's ridiculous to say like, oh, I'm not going to use any tools. Like you should be using tools, and if they have a tool that can help you be better, great. Like it's no different from like a static analysis, right? It's helping you debug this stuff, helping you find out. So if AI is going to do that, we should make it better. We should spend more time making it better. But for the foreseeable future, it's not good. It's not good enough on its own.
And then do you think that price is a major stopping point for a lot of protocols?
Yeah, very much. So the question was, do you think price is a major stopping point for protocols? Are you talking about in relation to security reviews or tooling or both?
Both.
Both. Okay, cool. Yeah, full stop, right? There's a reason a lot of people decide to go with independent auditors. Like they're cheaper, but maybe at the expense of quality, which is good, but if somebody wants to ship, they don't really care. It's not great. It's definitely a stopping point, and we should definitely be working on making tools that are cheaper, that are easier, more accessible, so that we stop, getting half $1 billion, several $1 billion. It's definitely stop. Any questions? Yes.
So at the moment, Solidity will be the dominant programming language used for smart contracts. Could you see a future where either Viper or something like that would take over, or a new language would come along and replace Solidity?
Good question. So the question was, at the moment, Viper is the dominant smart contract programming language. Do you see a time where Viper or something else comes takes its place? I think no matter how I answer this, I'm going to make somebody mad. I think from a philosophical standpoint, I actually think that we should 100% have more diverse compile languages. Viper being one that I really, really like, being Pythonic. I love some of the gas organizations. But the thing I would say, okay, imagine if that was a Solidity node that happened. We would be in a lot worse condition. Okay? And the same reason we talk about, there's always these fights about, okay, get versus all the other like EVM Ethereum clients, right? The get is dominant by far. And if get is a bug, the ETH ecosystem is in trouble, right? So they're always talking about client diversity, client diversity, client diversity. We've seen issues happen where each of these clients have bugs and cause issues, right? I think it's the same thing with our smart contract program. We should have more. I don't think it should just be one, because again, if that has an issue, we're in trouble. Yes, good question. Any other questions? All right, cool. So we have 7 minutes left here. My talk is basically over. Happy to keep bug hunting. See if anybody found any bugs yet, but for all intents and purposes, my talk is over. We will circle back in 5 minutes, see what bugs you found on this code base, if you found any. But thank you all for coming to this talk, and I hope you learned something.